those parliaments. Something must be going on that prevents them to pay. I think we need to approach those parliaments who have been defaulting on their payments so that we may understand, we may appreciate what are the difficulties that they are facing so that we may understand. I thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member from Angola. I will call on, I have two members from Eswatini. May I call the first member? You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. President, let me start by appreciating the mover and the seconder of the motion for their well-articulated presentation. And let me start by requesting that member states must respect the Constitution and they must pay. I think even the countries that are paying, it is not because they have money, but it is because of the respect of the Constitution of the SADC PF. So countries must pay. Much as we support and appreciate the grace period from the report, but I propose that we first develop, or the Secretariat must develop a SADC PF resource mobilization strategy, which will not only speak to external funding, but maybe some support even from private sector organizations, just as an example. And secondly, if we can say maybe 25% once off, and then going forward, then it must increase inflationary. I think per annum. I think that approach will sound better. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Member. I give the floor to the other member from Eswatini that had requested. Perhaps we made a mistake there.
Thank you.
Do we have a member? Oh yes, thank you. Ready.
Thank you, Honorable President. Honorable President, I won't waste much of your time, only to support the motion from the mover, and only maybe I've got one issue as well, but before I get there, Honorable President, for everyone I would love to say, no matter how tall you are, it is difficult to see the future. So with that, you may not predict that with the mandatory contribution that the country is contributing, will be able to continuously mean 30% with a staggering of maybe 5% a year. So at least maybe to cover to those countries that are not even able to pay. And I know since 2021, maybe with those reasons, I don't know why it was deferred, to run away from arguments and stuff. I really support that we at least amend this to 30%. And I beg members to support me on this. Just 30%. Please, members. Thank you. Honorable Chair.
Thank you, honorable member. I will be calling on the member from Botswana, but before I do that, I wish to note that Madagascar has notified us that they are online. So if our technical team will be ready to put Madagascar on, I will call on Botswana first, and then the members from Madagascar who wish to address the motion. The member from Botswana, may I? Honorable member, you have the. Sorry, I believe. Yes, Namibia. Do I have Botswana? I have Botswana and then Namibia. Okay. Sorry, I have difficulty seeing the name, the country tags from this distance. Oh, okay. Okay, so Madagascar has requested the floor. Do we have Madagascar ready?
Oui, bonjour, honorable président, cher honorable ami. Nous, en fait, Madagascar, nous voulons répondre suite à la discussion précédente concernant la contribution de Madagascar. Et lors de la réunion du EXCO à Johannesburg, la délégation malgache a déjà exposé la situation de la question en fait du paiement de la contribution de Madagascar pour l'année 2024 se situe déjà, comme il a été expliqué, au niveau de la Banque centrale. Donc, il s'agit en fait d'un problème au niveau de la Banque centrale de Madagascar et celle de Namibie, dont nous n'avons pas aussi cette question. Et nous tenons aussi à souligner que il s'agit pour Madagascar d'une nouvelle législature. En fait, les élections législatives malgaches ont eu lieu en mai 2024, c'est-à-dire cette année, ce qui fait que nous n'avons pas eu la possibilité de payer la contribution pour l'année 2025 en attendant la mise en place de cette nouvelle législature. Mais néanmoins, nous soulignons en fait que cette contribution pour l'année 2025 a déjà été inscrite dans la loi de finances initiale de 2025. Donc, ce qui fait que cette loi de finances a été adoptée en novembre de cette année et pour la contribution malgache de 2025, ce sera payé avant le mois de mars de l'année qui va venir. Honorable Président, nous tenons aussi à préciser que le président de l'Assemblée nationale malgache, l'honorable
Speaker of the National Assembly of Madagascar,
le vol
and we tried.
venir à Namibie pour assister à notre 50e.
He will take the flight this afternoon so that he can come and participate to the meeting. I would like to emphasize here to this assembly that if our situation is giving some challenges, we would like to find out if we need to withdraw before it's delayed, because there was a moment where we declined the chairmanship. Now that we are ready, and then there is this issue of the late payment. I believe that the plenary or the assembly should take that into account. I believe that we already spoke to the central bank, and so that we find out. Please let us know. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, honorable member from Madagascar. we appreciate the commitment. Yes, I now have the member speaker from Namibia and the speaker from Zambia. Speaker of Namibia, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Honorable President. I really just wanted to appreciate the presentations made by our colleagues, the Treasurer and the Speaker of the National Assembly of Lesotho. I know this is not an easy subject, dealing with money, but I felt they put all the issues on the table. And it is for us now to pick it up and do justice to a number of issues that they highlighted for the benefit of the stability of our organization. There's no doubt that this is important as we go through the transition, going through the transformation. We don't want anybody to doubt our ability to sustain this organization. It is just too important for us to do anything that will hinder the kind of progress that we would like to see now and into the future. And lastly, I also want to appreciate the remarks made by a colleague from Angola when she hinted at the need for those who have not been able to make their contribution to, given the time, to indicate to us, at least, give us the framework within which you are able to meet your obligations to this organization. I think that will help us. As we normally say, we don't want anyone to be left behind. We want to move forward with confidence, knowing the fact that we're all committed to ensure that we succeed as a regional parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I will give the floor to the Speaker of Zambia.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. For any organization to thrive, we need to have some financial muscle. At the moment, the report by the Treasurer clearly shows that we don't have that muscle. And if we have to attract any suitors, we need to make sure that we are fit for the purpose. So we need to have money. For now, we are planning to transition into a regional parliament. And if anybody is going to have a faith and we have credibility in what we are doing, we should show and demonstrate that we have financial muscle. That's when people will be able to come and assist us. But at the rate that we are going, if we don't have this increment, that means we will not be able to attract anyone. So for me, I support the increment of 50%, but of course appeal to the honorable members that have not yet paid to indicate, like the honorable Speaker of Namibia has indicated, that they should indicate and tell us. They should share with us what concerns or what challenges they have, and also in a way indicate as to when they will be able to make good. Because this is a member organization, and as a member you need to ensure that you pay your subscriptions in order to enjoy the benefits that accrue to each member. So if we don't pay, then it will be a bit difficult. But again, we need to balance that. We need to carry everyone along with us. So that's why we are saying if the honorable members, countries that have not been able to pay, they can indicate what challenges there are so that we share. They say a problem shared is half solved. So maybe that way we can be able to understand what challenges they are facing. But we can't run away from the aspect of the increment, because otherwise we will not be a going concern. I think the report of the Treasurer has been very clear that if we don't pay we don't increase, then we will not go a concern. So the other regional parliaments are thriving, they are working very well. We are just starting to change, to transition into a regional parliament. So should we be looked at as a parliament, regional parliament that has no financial muscle? I'm sure we can put resources together. It's not easy. We are going through a difficult time in terms of resources. Each country has its own challenges, but I think we know where our priorities are, especially that we are talking about regional integration, working together, bringing our resources, our knowledge, our everything together so that we become stronger. They say united we stand, but divided we fall. So let's make sure that we continue standing together united. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Oral Rule Speaker. I recognize a member from Malawi.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would like to put a voice on. Let me ride on the best wishes from the previous speakers. I want to thank the Treasurer for a well-elaborated report and also the seconder. And I think it is very important that everyone knows that he who has money plays good politics. And it's important that the organization needs to have the much needed money. But for me, out of curiosity, there's a letter that we received from SADC Parliamentary Forum dated 25th September 2024. And I think it was the content of the country report to be submitted to the 56th Plenary Assembly of the forum to be held in Livingstone, Zambia from 8th to 15th. On one of the recommendations or requirement there on 2, it was addressing the impact of the inflation of the budget and the forum, increase in mandatory contribution, and it was talking of 20%. And the Treasurer report is talking of 50%. I just wanted to ask, I think the two are not speaking to each other. Or which one comes first, or which one do we follow? I submit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The question will be noted by the Treasurer. I have the member from Botswana who is now ready to address.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. And again, let me thank Mr. Treasurer with his report. But I think we are just going to move in circles. I think the whole House is agreeing on numerous things. I would like to thank Honorable Speaker from Zimbabwe. He talked about the articles in our constitution, but they were never followed. I mean, we are the ones who put them down. Now, why are they not respected, or they're not put into action? Maybe that's why people are relaxed, even if they know that they're not up to date with their payments. Again, I think we should know what is the challenge for those owing members. Because honestly, we know economically SADC region is hard hit. But I think it's best to tell this parliament what is your challenge, and at least to say I can afford this. I think we are just going to repeat and repeat. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Honorable member. I have the member from Zambia. Do I have a member from Zambia who is, in that case, I will go to the member from South Africa.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I can't emphasize enough the point that has been made already, especially by the Speaker of Zimbabwe. And I think our colleague from Lesotho must lead by example. And I think many people have spoken about this, that those countries that are still lagging behind in terms of subscription must really come to the party. And I think if you look at the financial report and what has been presented, I think for me, the point that has been made about us not relying on donor funding, because colleagues, the truth is there's no free lunch. Anyone who funds you might want to dictate your agenda. And I think it's going to be important for us to really to consider this 50% increase, as steep as it is, if it's going to assist us to cover the cost of this forum, because this is a very important forum. And therefore, I had a lot of debate in my mind and with my colleagues, but given the reasoning behind the request to have this 50% increase, I think we have to consider agreeing with the team that has presented. Of course, we understand that the financial situation that we find ourselves in, which is a situation that all of us are confronted with, is a reality. But I think there's far greater value in our independence as the forum by making sure that our affairs are dictated by us and not by outside influence. So it is, because of those reasons that I think we must seriously consider the increase. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I recognize a member from the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Merci, Honorable Président, pour la parole. Je voulais ici signaler que la République démocratique du Congo, notre pays, a effectivement une dette à régler. Mais comme il a été signalé ici lors de la présentation du rapport, mon pays n'a pas seulement manifesté l'intention de payer, mais elle a commencé le processus de paiement. Madame le secrétaire général de la SADC a certainement reçu une lettre qui lui avait été adressée par le président de l'Assemblée nationale, lettre du 5 décembre 2024, par laquelle il transmettait à Madame la secrétaire générale en pièce jointe la preuve de la lettre adressée concomitamment au ministre des Finances et des Budgets de notre pays, par laquelle ils ont, les deux présidents, demandé aux deux ministres de payer directement toutes les dettes que la RDC a accumulées en face de la SADC. Et cette lettre qui était adressée au ministre des Finances et au ministre des Budgets a été réceptionnée le 3 décembre 2024. Et comme nous le savons, le processus de paiement ne se fait pas du tic au tac. Ça demande une vérification et un processus qui est présentement en cours. Je crois bien que d'ici peu de jours, on ne parlera plus de la dette de la RDC face à la SADC, mais ça sera une question réglée avant même la fin de l'exercice en cours. Tout sera payé. J'ai dit et je vous remercie.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I have taken all the members that I had on my list, and debate being concluded, I will now call on the Treasurer to respond.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Chairman, and I thank the House, the various members who have made the interventions to the motion. May I, with due respect, point out, Mr. Chairman, that it is not, or it was not the intention to put anyone on panic mode, particularly in terms of the proposal for increment, the increase in subscriptions. Like everyone else, I am aware, we are aware of the depressed economies and the budgetary constraint that we operate under. And it was the chairman, a very painful exercise, or shall I say, it didn't go very well also with us that we have to announce this increase. Be that as it may, Mr. Chairman, it has been said by so many within this assembly that we need, there's no question about it, the institution to be a going concern, and its sustainability should not be frustrated to the extent of its collapse. I think we agreed on that. The question is whether what we are proposing is realistic in terms of the going concern going together with the sustainability of the institution. Maybe let me start with, without any order, Mr. Chairman, in answering what has been raised. Question of staggering. And the question of yet another time to be afforded to member states to rethink proposal. I have no problem, we have no problem on that one, but we would have expected, and we still expect, that consideration be given that, if I may use this word in the absence of a better phrase, not gone down well prior to this a proposal. There has been a proposals before, and through sheer mother's luck, here we are. We cannot always depend on sheer mother's luck. So in short, the staggering is not an unreasonable suggestion, but it's been dictated by circumstances which are clearly articulated in section 6 and maybe section 7, Mr. Chairman, of the paper 2 report. Yes, there has been some mention of 25%, 30%. Anybody can come with anything. But if you look at that tabulation there, that analysis there, it does show that anything other than 50%, we are in the woods. which we want to get out from. So I would plead not actually saying, no, we cannot stagger, but let any suggestion, any recommendation be compared and analyzed with Section 6 and 7, where it is clear that we are only viable if we go for 50, and even then, it is only 20, 26, 27, and there will be a review in 2028, which means it doesn't mean we will be comfortable even after the 50 proposal increment, proposed increment, Mr. Chairman. I'm just summarizing that. In terms of the subscriptions, many have spoken and made reference to that. That is the contributions. Indeed, it is incumbent upon all of us to honor our obligations in terms of payment. But one may have to explain that that does not change anything, or is not that relevant to the once said. The Constitution is very clear on this one. If you default and default, there comes a time when you may be asked to leave and not continue being a member. Well, that would be drastic, but it is there, it's provided. In other words, we have an obligation to pay the subscriptions. But what I must underscore and underline is the fact that it is nothing to do with the increment we are proposing. In fact, the analysis that we have made on Section 6 and 7 is based on everyone paying. Well, those that are in arrears, Mr. Chairman, they are only frustrating the operations of the institutions in terms of cash flow. So it only affects and is relevant to a cash flow situation. Not to say it's less important, it's important, like the Constitution does point out. But having alluded to that, Mr. Chairman, maybe I go question by question. If I will finish them, some of these I would have long touched. Honorable Mdenda, Zimbabwe, the question of arrears, couldn't agree more with him. We have an obligation to pay, and someone asked what is being done to inquire why they are failing. We do, and we will continue. Some of them have even promised to pay, although the money doesn't come in. We may not even dig too much to their problems, because we know everyone is constrained financially. It's a depressed economy we are in, and where we would not to say because we are constrained we should not pay, but at least it is a mitigating factor where it's on account of monies, fees, budget not allowing. But not merely, there are so many, the circumstances, Mr. Chairman, are numerous, but what we are saying, we understand those challenges, but nonetheless we need to pay. In other words, I agree with Honorable Mtenda on that one. The annual audited accounts, yes, pertinent point, but although the report would have not addressed this elephant in the house, the Constitution does call on us that each of such assemblies we have auditor statement. We are sorry about that. It has been delayed by auditors, but we can assure the Great House that on the next meeting it will be available. He also touched on the retained earnings, which is the source of this proposal to increase the subscriptions. He made a proposal to the effect that how about even though the Constitution does indicate that it has to be two, well, it says it has to be two plenaries per year. He didn't say one plenary, but what he said, the way I understood him, was maybe we consider having one physical one like this one, and maybe alternate so that the other one is virtual. Well, it's for the plenary to consider that. To me, it looks okay. It might help, but certainly not to the extent of rectifying this problem we've just alluded to. But in the long term, because we want the institution to be a really going concern in the truest sense of going concern. So that is pertinent what he is saying. Was he even made the example of the COVID era, where meetings were held virtually, thereby us making some savings towards the retained earnings. We agree, maybe I wouldn't have a ruling on that, but it's for ESCO and this assembly to agree or not. But to me, it's a reasonable suggestion. Of course, he also indicated that it looks a high jump indeed in terms of increment, which might translate to 2,250,000. I have already addressed that, and we are also at pains in announcing it, but the analysis are there. It's for the House to consider. Angola, Honorable Sebastian, says seems that the time was not enough to give a thorough thought of the suggestion. Can't argue with that one, Mr. President. But he also referred to payment of the arrears. We agree with that too. And he also says the increase is rather too huge. It would help what he might suggest, but his suggestion would be constrained by the fact that the time was not enough. Angola again, someone about the committee meetings. Not forming a quorum, yet we pay to go to this meeting, whether virtually or physically, and connectivity challenges. Expressed that we should be sympathetic to those who are not able to pay. I've already addressed that we know we have challenges.
Honorable Treasurer, may I suggest that we summarize the points that have been made in one response so that we can deal with the issues comprehensively. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. In summary, I would say the House supports and understands and appreciates the need, notwithstanding that and that factor, for a review. Of course, an increase, if I may. They understand that. Right? It's a question of when. I would plead with you, with your assembly, Mr. President, that we adopt, and that's my prayer, the report, and taking into account the concerns and the observations there, that we review the proposal in the next plenary, so that it gives those who think they didn't have time, so that it gives those who think they have suggestions to make those concrete suggestions, and we review. But I must end on the note that I thought the analysis that were presented show that we need to increase, and we're saying 50 is the bare minimum, Mr. President. I thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Your mic.
Thank you. The motion having been moved for adoption, I now put the question that the report of the Executive Committee on Financial Matters, the Treasurer's report, be adopted. Are there any objections?
No objections. Agreed.
There are no objections. Sorry? An honourable member has raised her flag. Is this an objection to the report? I give you the floor, Honourable.
No.
Thank you.
Honourable President, before I agree to object or not, I just wanted to clarity to say there were interventions. On the interventions, there were motions that were moved in terms of not really saying approving the 50%, but amending it to a little bit lesser. So
the report as it stands is not amended. it is adopted, but as the Treasurer has indicated, it can be reviewed in the future by a future plenary executive committee. So that this is where we stand. If we adopt the report, we adopt the report as it stands, but the manner of its implementation can be reviewed. So there are no objections to the adoption of the report. Therefore, I declare that the Treasurer's report is adopted. Thank you. I will call on the Secretary General to read the second order of business for the day.
Motion for the adoption of the report of the Executive Committee on Policy and Administrative Matters.
The notice of motion for the adoption of the report of the Executive Committee on Policy and Administrative Matters will be presented by the Honorable Speaker, Advocate Jacob Francis Mudenda, who is a member of the Executive Committee. Honorable Speaker, will you move your motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I beg to move that this House yes. Thank you, Mr. President. I beg to move the motion standing in my name. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I call for a seconder for the motion. The Honorable Speaker of South Africa.
Thank you very much, Honorable President. I would like to second the motion as tabled by Honorable Mudenda.
Thank you. Honorable Speaker Mudenda, you have the floor to present the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I beg to move that this House do adopt the report of the Executive Committee on the General SADC-PF Policy and Administrative Matters laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, 11th December 2024. Mr. President, allow me to preface the presentation of the final report of the outgoing Executive Committee by asserting that I stand proudly before this august House today to present a report that reaffirms the latent power of framing a vision, articulating the vision, passionately owning the vision, and relentlessly driving it to completion. I am reminded of the illustrative words of the American author Joel A. Baker in his book Paradigms, The Business of Discovering the Future, published in 1973, who said, and I quote him, "Vision without action is merely a dream. Action without vision just passes time. Vision with action can change the world," unquote. The ESCO set an ambitious vision and relentlessly followed it to its completion. As per that quotation, Mr. President, as this August House may recall, at the beginning of the tenure of the Executive Committee, a roadmap was issued by Your Excellency, the President, which outlined the forum's main strategic areas of intervention as it strives for parliamentary excellency in the regional governance framework. The issues outlined in the roadmap for 2020-23 included, among others, transformation of the forum into a SADC regional parliament, mobilization initiatives, finalization of SADC-PF strategic plan, persuading the Comoros to join SADC-PF family, and risk management and mitigation policy. I'm pleased to inform this august House that the EXO report that I'm about to present will outline the solid legacy of tangible results that the outgoing EXCO, under Your Excellency's leadership, is leaving behind and bequeathing to the incoming Executive Committee. Mr. President, it is a legacy built on the strong base of transformative leader with a vision and the conviction that the forum's dreams could be achieved and inspired by the commitment and energy to get it done. It is a heritage guided by the sacrifice and perseverance of men and women who believed in the forum's trajectory and relentlessly pursued the attainment of the forum's objectives, even if in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. Equally importantly, it is a legacy predicted on unity, convergence of minds, and a single-minded focus on what this forum can and should do for the citizens of the region whose sacred mandate we are all honored to carry. I think, Mr. President, you must be thanked for your leadership in that regard. I thought you'd give him a round of applause. Ah. Well, it's not yet lunchtime, honorable members. Before I delve into the EXCO report, I therefore wish to request this august House to join me in expressing my heartfelt gratitude to you, Mr. President, and all the members of the outgoing EXCO for the achievements this Executive Committee has registered in driving the mandate of the SADC Parliamentary Forum over the past 2 years. I think another round of applause. May I proceed now to the depth of the Executive Committee's report. In terms of Article 12, subsection 1 of the Constitution of SADC provides that, and I quote, "The Executive Committee shall be responsible for the management of the affairs of the Forum, giving direction to the Secretariat and ensuring that the decisions of the Plenary Assembly are implemented and shall be answerable to the plenary session," unquote. In pursuant to this mandate, the Executive Committee of SADC Parliamentary Forum convened a meeting on the 23rd and 24th November 2024 to consider the various matters of strategic importance as well as financial and policy matters of SADC Parliamentary Forum. The EXCO now presents the first part of its report containing its recommendations and resolutions to the 56th Plenary Assembly session for noting, decision, and adoption as the case may be. The second part of EXCO report will cover the financial matters which have been dealt with by our esteemed Treasurer. Now, the membership of the Executive Committee, as of our meeting on the 23rd and 24th November, did form a quorum. The EXCO completion of the objectives identified in the roadmap and inaugural message of the President. The Plenary Assembly is invited to note that the EXCO's tenure, which ran from 2022 to 2024, will expire at the end of the 56th Plenary Assembly session. The Plenary Assembly may recall that at the beginning of EXCO's tenure, a roadmap and inaugural message were issued by the President, which outlined the Forum's main areas of intervention as it strives for the parliamentary excellency. For recall, the issues outlined in the roadmap of 2023 to 2024 were as follows: A, transformation of the Forum into a SADC regional parliament; B, resource mobilization and parliamentary projects. C, capacity building initiative for national parliament. D, finalization of the strategic plan. E, completing the SADC PF family. And F, promoting a clean and carbon-free environment. G, promoting regional integration and the SADC identity. And finally, H, risk management and mitigation. The plenary assembly will be pleased to note that ESCO has largely delivered on its mandate over the last 2 years, with the most objectives being fully complemented. The following are, however, yet to be completed, as the achievement of these particular objectives is largely dependent on systemic factors within the SADC geopolitical spheres in relations to which the forum has no control. A, the transformation of the forum into a SADC regional parliament. B, completing the SADC family, which involves the Comoros becoming a member of the forum. The plenary is therefore invited to note that the ESCOM is handing over a situation where the transformation of the forum is well on track, and where the next ESCO will be tasked to complete the transformation and to equally persuade the Comoros to join the forum in view of completing the SADC family. The plenary assembly may also note that in terms of resource mobilization, before I go to that, Mr. President, if you may allow, each member of parliament must have some conversation with their executive, because in August, member states under the summit, SADC summit, were requested to look at the protocol, the instrument that will actually transform SADC PF into a regional parliament. So it is important that we engage the executive of our countries to ensure that they sign that protocol, and we have at least the majority of members signed. Until that is done, the transformation will stagger. I think that's very important. That's the message that we should carry when we live here. And then the question of resource mobilization, except to say that we did have some contributions from of 52,000 Swedish kronas, around 50. Project will be undoubtedly buttress the forum's human rights objectives over the next years. Now, the decision that the forum should make is that the plenary assembly is requested to note the progress registered by the ESCOM in the implementation of the roadmap 2023 to 2024, and to encourage the incoming ESCOM to take up and finalize the outstanding issues, including the transformation of the forum into a SADC regional parliament, the inclusion of Coromos as part of SADC PF. Plenary assembly also must note the socio-economic outlook of our region. It is invited therefore to note the ESCO efforts in addressing the lack of commodity access for the most vulnerable, issues of food insecurity in the region, obviously caused by the El Nino that has affected all of us, the need to promote access to essential medicines, and the question of price stability. The plenary may recall that owing to this consistent support from ESCOM, member countries have, through their national parliaments, buttressed economic stability, including by working with their central banks to ensure that monetary policy is as stable as possible. The plenary may acknowledge that while it is the fact that Southern Africa operates within major trade deficits with more imports than exports, therefore affecting our trade balance, Member countries have nonetheless managed to keep their currencies stable with regards to regional currencies and to reduce imports which were pegged on the US dollar. Accordingly, inflation has been reduced by around 3% over the last 2 years, coupled with an economic recovery that is marked with an average of 2.5% to about 6% increase in the economic growth. The plenary assembly may be pleased to note that member states are now taking into account climate action and energy efficiency and integrating the same to government initiative, thus setting the SADC region on the right track for economic resilience. Now, what's the decision that we require from the plenary here? That is invited to note the above positive developments and their corollary impact on the economic development and resilience of the SADC region, which have gone a long way towards ameliorating the quality of life and standard of living among the SADC cities. Of the forum into SADC regional parliament, I think this was achieved through this
Recording stopped. from government, and I think we're almost there, although we haven't reached the 100% which is needed by Marable Protocol, so that we meet the SDG number 3. And on my part as a member of Parliament, what we've come up with using Constitutional Development Fund, working with the communities, we've started the construction some few infrastructure to support this SDG number 3. You may agree with me that you've seen the Nyakorwe Lolo Youth Center that is being constructed under CDF 2022, and that's far we are. I think the only remaining thing is to put up towers inside. We have in Zambia, we've got a problem with power, and usually there are times when ZESCO are facing challenges. So we've decided to give in Nimba District Hospital a 100 kV genset, which is in operation. I think we bought around 500,000 kwacha. In addition to that, we have Nimba. There are times where we take the bodies of our loved one to Minga, which is in Petrovia Central. So as a CDF working in the community.
Thank you, Professor, for all your efforts. The plenary assembly is invited to note that the trust, which is an innovative resource mobilization vehicle, is vested with the necessary operational independence of the trustees to mobilize resources in favor of SADC PF. This is the first time that the forum has been able to establish a special purpose vehicle as a flexible route for investment to be made, with the forum being the ultimate beneficiary. I have no doubt personally that we are going to raise a lot of money through the trust. Yeah, as I said earlier on, we may not need that 50%, but I am not saying the 50% should be revised. I'm not saying that, because we've adopted the report.
Recording in progress.
The plenary assembly is requested to note that this progressive development and encourage the trustees to independently drive the operations of the trust by ensuring that they perform their functions separately from SADC PF, which is a beneficiary in accordance with the Trust Administration Act 2020-23 of Namibia. Now, developing and domesticating normative content. Plenary is invited to note that over the past 2 years, ESCO has intensified efforts to promote modern laws as standard-setting norms that can improve the legislative landscape of SADC region and beyond. In this respect, domestication initiatives have been initiated for the SADC modern law on public financial management, PFM, and the SADC modern law on gender-based violence. In addition to the aforesaid, the plenary is requested to note that the forum is in the process of developing further relevant modern laws, including but not limited to SADC law on prisons oversight. Number 2, Southern modern law on climate action. Very important. 3, SADC modern law on the rule of law and constitutionalism. 4, SADC modern law on critical minerals, especially those from Africa. 5, SADC modern law on the management of sensitive assets of the state. And number 6, SADC modern law on the digital economy. For members that are new to SADC PF, I want to report to you that the modern laws that we have passed have found their way right up to the African Union at that level. So we are influencing lawmaking in Africa. Others are not clapping their hands, I don't know why. Lunch will be served very soon. Now, the Plenary Assembly may recall that engaging modern lawmaking from a structured approach is one of the main reasons for the transformation of the Forum into a regional parliament, as the latter would be more persuasive to countries in view of pushing for a targeted domestication initiatives of the modern laws. Now, what decision do we expect? That plenary is requested to note the significant strides of the Forum has made in developing and domesticating normative content in the past 2 years, which greatly assist in position the Forum as a leading organization on the international landscape and buttresses the case for transformation of the Forum into a SADC regional parliament. Now, the theme for the 56th Plenary Assembly and appreciation for the arrangement made for the hosting of the Plenary Assembly. The theme, we have debated on that one, and it is important that we translate what we debate to our national parliaments in terms of the decisions that will be taken. The Plenary Assembly is requested to note the unprecedented opportunities offered by rapid technological advancements and the innovations to strengthen parliamentary institutions by enhancing transparency, citizen engagement, and accountability through using digital technologies. I think if you read this speech of our guest of honor, you should be educated as to what Zambia has done. I think Zambia is a good example to follow in terms of the application of digital technologies in our parliamentary efforts. A round of applause for Zambia. My twin sister, I thought you were going to lead in clapping harder. That's better. What decision do we want? It is the plenary is requested to place on record its sincere appreciation to the National Assembly of Zambia, led by the Right Honorable Speaker Nelly Muti, for graciously accepting to host the 56th Plenary Assembly and for the selection of a relevant, timely, and appropriate theme on which deliberations would be predicated. Another round of applause. You see, leadership by women is accomplished through their soft skills. Alibongwe. Alibongwe igama lamakhosikazi. Thank you, Honorable Muti, for the effort. B, the Plenary Assembly is invited to express its gratitude to His Excellency, President Hakainde Hichilema, the President of the Republic of Zambia, for officially opening the plenary through the Vice President Nalumango. I think we performed exceptionally well with all her sense of humor. I told her she must bring the physical copies of her memoir. I hope we'll be able to have it. Some of us are prepared to buy as many copies as possible and distribute to our parliaments. The Plenary Assembly is also requested to commend the host parliament for convening an indaba on the margins of the plenary assembly for female speakers and parliamentarians to discuss challenges affecting women, political leadership, and look at some of the measures that can be put in place to ensure retention of women in political governance. Now, engagement on the Comoros to join the SADC Parliament Forum. On this, in this regard, I think it should be placed on record that our president has been trying very hard to bring Comoros on board. Therefore, what is the decision that we require? The plenary assembly is requested to place on record its appreciation of the efforts made by the SADC President, Honorable Speaker Roger Macien, to persuade the Parliament of Comoros to join the forum and encourage him to continue engaging the Parliament until the objective is achieved. So, Mr. President, the job is not finished. We shall rely on you to continue. I hope the income ESCO will make sure that the current president is on hand to assist. Now, the awarding of certificates, given the onerous responsibility that ESCO carries in the overall management and conduct of forum business, the plenary assembly is invited to note that henceforth, members of the executive committee will be awarded with certificates of recognition for serving in the ESCO at the end of their tenure. The certificates will be awarded with the following classifications: President and Vice President. The certificate will read Valiant Defender of Democracy. Number 2, Honorable Speakers will be awarded Grand Defender of Democracy. The MPs will also get something. And that is Defender of Democracy. Now, the MPs don't start crying foul here. Even in heaven, you have archangels, and below them, angels. In our traditional shape, you have paramount chiefs, ordinary chiefs, headmen, and village heads. So that is there in our culture. So that grading, I'm sure, will be accepted. Some more round of applause, please. Now, what is the decision that is required? The Assembly is invited to note this positive development, which recognizes the dedication and commitment of ESCO members to their responsibilities, and place on record its appreciation to the outgoing ESCO through the awarding of certificates of recognition as per the aforesaid classification. As I said in my tribute to Professor, let us recognize each other when we are still alive. Now, nomination of institutional memory members of ESCO. The plenary assembly is invited to recall the provisions of Article 12, subsection 3 of the SADC Constitution, which provides as follows, and I'll read: members of the executive committee shall hold office for a term of 2 years and shall retire by rotation, provided that the former treasurer, 2 presiding officers, and 2 ordinary members to be nominated by the executive committee shall, for transitional purposes, continue to hold office for a further period of 1 year as ex officio members with full deliberative but no voting rights. and they'll stand in here as members to provide institutional memory. Accordingly, the plenary assembly is invited to note that the following ESCO members were nominated to serve as institutional memory members for a further year. Now, who are the presiding officers? The first one is yours truly, myself. The next one is Honorable Speaker Sekimane of Lesotho. The treasurer is Honorable Senator Isaac Magagula of the Kingdom of Eswatini. Now, who are the MPs? Honorable Princess Kasune of Zambia, Honorable Philippus Widow Katamelo of Namibia. Those are your institutional members. They will serve only for 1 year. Now, the decision requested is that those that have been nominated to serve for an additional year as repositories of institutional memory in accordance with Article 12, subsection 3 of
Recording in progress.
We'll go to South Africa. Now, normally when you announce names, please, you need to clap, eh? I will start again. President Madagascar. Yes. Very good. Vice President South Africa and Seychelles. And the Treasurer Lesotho. Thank you very much. So, what is of note here is this. The plenary assembly is requested to note, however, that after holding the seat of the presidency from 2022 to 2024, Seychelles has graciously agreed to step down and allow South Africa to nominate a candidate for the position of vice president. Kudos to Seychelles. Yeah, we are not here to scramble for position. We are here to serve. Thank you very much, Seychelles. Thank you, Seychelles. The plenary assembly, therefore, is invited to note that in accordance with the principle of rotation, as espoused in Article 11, subsection 2 of the SADC-PF Constitution, the nominees from Madagascar, South Africa, and Lesotho will be confirmed as President, Vice President, and Treasurer, respectively, without the need for an election. Another round of applause. Consensus is very good. That's the spirit of SADC-PF. Final warning. Prior to enforcement of punitive measures for delays in payment of annual mandatory contributions, the plenary assembly is invited to applaud the parliaments of Angola, Botswana, Lesotho, Mauritius, Namibia, Zambia, South Africa, and Zimbabwe for having paid year beginning 1st of April 2024 and ending in 31st March 2025. Let me appeal to colleagues so mentioned that can you pay as soon as possible so that you maintain your leadership position in paying in time and not on time. Yes, you deserve a clap of hands, please. Yes. The plenary assembly is requested to note those member of parliament that are owing for the current financial year, as well as those who are owing for 2 or 3 financial years. The plenary assembly is requested to exhort member parliaments that have outstanding annual contributions to honor their obligation. Mindful that the forum's operation depend on the members' contribution, this would constitute a final warning for the member parliaments prior to the enforcement of punitive measures should further delays be registered. In the event that some parliaments continue to be in default, the plenary assembly is requested to consider imposing sanctions in accordance with the SADC PF Constitution, as is the norm in other interparliamentary organizations. So what is the decision? The plenary is requested to issue a final warning to the relevant member parliaments prior to the enforcement of the punitive sanctions on those member parliaments that persist in defaulting on the payment of annual mandatory contributions for more than 12 months in according to Article 9, subsection 1 of the SADC provides that, subject to ratification by the plenary assembly, the executive committee may suspend the rights of a member parliament whose prescribed annual membership fees or other financial obligations are in arrears for more than 12 months, which suspension shall be rescinded upon full payment of the arrears by the member parliaments. Now, there's a proviso. The committee may rescind the suspension where it is satisfied that the member parliament is able and is willing to meet the financial obligation within a defined period. Now, finally, before we go to lunch, before my seconder speaks, sorry, cost cutting and resource mobilization measures. The plenary assembly is invited to recall that part of the forum's retained earnings had accrued from deliberate cost-saving measures, such as the hosting of virtual meetings where the paucity of funding would not permit physical meetings. Accordingly, the plenary assembly is requested to consider maintaining the current cost-saving initiatives, including hosting virtual meetings of standing committees and ESCO, where the budget is inadequate to cover physical meetings. The plenary assembly is also invited to consider establishing a resource mobilization led by the treasurer to assist in mobilizing resources for the forum. What is the final decision? Subject to availability of resources, the plenary assembly is requested to approve the proposal to continue hosting virtual meetings of standing ESCOM as a proactive cost-cutting initiative. B, the plenary assembly is also invited to endorse the establishment of a resource mobilization committee to mobilize resources for the forum. Mr. President, I so beg to move. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Members, I'm wondering if we may be able to dispense of this item with a slight prolongation of this session. That depends on how we go. But for now, I will call on the seconder, the Honorable Speaker Didiza, to address the motion in secondment.
Thank you very much, President, honorable senators and members. Mr. President, in seconding the motion, let me begin by commending the mover, Speaker Mdenda, for eloquently articulating the achievements registered over the past 2 years and also outlining the issues delegated committee which will now be taken in executive committee after the plenary session. Allow me to zero in particular on the progress that we've made in pursuit of the transformation of SADC PF into a SADC regional parliament. Admittedly, the road has not been easy and the forum could have been forgiven for giving up on the transformation agenda. However, we did not give up. And led by a formidable team of 5 speakers who were lobbying on behalf of the forum, led by His Excellency Honorable Mdenda, were able to soldier on and indeed reach our objective. We can say today we stand on the cusp of history because we refused to give up and instead sharpened our spears to go after the big game. We bow in obeisance to the members of the forum, past and present, whose concerted efforts culminated in this historic achievement. We pay tribute to those who have gone and those leaving us. I'm not sure how much she would leave us since she was still going to be a year as one of the institutional memory members, Honorable Princess Kasume, who facilitated the signing of the agreement by Zambia as Minister of Justice. And this underscores the point that has been raised by Honorable Mdenda, that the challenge of making sure that we finalize the signing of the protocol is not only of those who will continue to lobby the executive, but it's a responsibility of each one of us as members of SADC PF to ensure that our ministers of foreign affairs as well as our executives collectively in our parliament does ensure that this process is undertaken. But it would be amiss of me, Mr. President, if I do not make a special mention of Honorable Speaker Advocate Jacob Francis Mudenda for believing in the transformation dream and exhorting even those in despair to continue fighting for its actualization. Just after the SADC summit in Harare, Honorable Mdenda made sure that in between that summit, I don't know with whatever time he had, we were able to secure a meeting with the President of Botswana, and immediately we had to go there and ensure that we present the views of the forum about the need for Botswana to actually sign. And I trust that my sister, Deputy Speaker present here with the Speaker will ensure that indeed Botswana and others continue to ensure that we finalize this process. To you, Honorable Speaker Mudenda, we want to say thank you for your strength and perseverance in spite of overwhelming obstacles. Mr. President, may I also pose a sobering reminder that amidst the euphoria of what we are celebrating today for this phenomenal achievement, we must not forget that we are halfway to the promised land. We've passed one difficult hurdle, but we still have another to actually also jump, the one of ensuring that the protocol is signed. If we think, as it is said by one of our African proverbs, that we may be too small to make a difference, we must try spend time with the mosquito. It's very little, but I saw yesterday each one of us were actually, showing the power that the mosquito has. And therefore, this work that we have as the forum, which we have to pursue, is no small task. We will be shown our resilience and success by what we will do to make sure that finally, in our lifetime, we will have the SADC Regional Parliament. Mr. President, allow me also to take this opportunity to thank you for your steering leadership at the Exco and the Forum. Your ability to listen even to contrary ideas and in the end steer Exco to a convergence of minds propelled us to achieve what we have achieved as recounted by Honorable Mdenda. In the words of the 40th President of America, Ronald Reagan, I quote, "The greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He is the one that gets the people to do the greatest things," close quote. Because of you, our eyes have seen the ocean, and going forward, we can never be satisfied with a mere lagoon. Mr. President, to Honorable Speaker Kachavivi, whose company I'm sure we will continue to enjoy, even though maybe not on a full-time basis as it has been now, I cannot take away from the rousing tribute paid by Honorable Speaker Modenda on our behalf, as well as other members. It is my prayer that Honorable Speaker Muti and the National Assembly members of Zambia will be able to arrange the trip to the place that he passed over his way to exile. It will be, in my view, a fitting tribute to a luminary of the forum and a great son of the African soil. What I don't know, when will he ever give the shoes to Joe Modise as per request? It is also my entry that we will continue to benefit from the unfathomable depth of your wisdom, Speaker Kachavivi, and counsel even beyond your tenure as Speaker and member of this forum. In this regard, consideration must be given to establishing some akin to the African Union Panel of the Wise as a structure for the forum to continue drawing from the wisdom of senior statements such as Honorable Speaker Kachavivi. Mr. President, it would be remiss of me to conclude my remarks without mentioning South Africa's strategic positioning as the chairperson of the G20 and the possibilities that this position opens to the forum. Article 6, subsection G of the SADC-PF Constitution enjoins the forum, I quote, to promote cooperation with other parliamentary organizations and other stakeholders, close quote. South Africa's membership and chairing of the G20 provides an opportunity for the forum to expand its reach and establish mutually beneficial relationships with the G20 membership and other stakeholders through the G20 Parliamentary Speakers Forum. As South Africa, we will endeavor to facilitate an invitation to the forum to attend the 11th G20 Speaker Summit with a view to establishing edifying relationships on a global scale. Mr. President, I beg to second the adoption of the report of EXCO. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Speaker. And while I have the occasion, may I thank you and Speaker Mudenda for the very kind words that you have expressed towards me. I am really honored. Honorable members, I think it would be prudent now to adjourn for lunch, And when we come back, we will take debate on the motion and the reply. So I enjoy your lunch, and I will ask you to be back here at 2:30 p.m. 2:30. Thank you.
So delegates have broken up for lunch. Business resumes at 14:30 hours. We saw a motion being moved by Honorable Speaker of the National Assembly of Zimbabwe, Jacob Mubenda, who is a member of the Executive Committee, and this motion has been seconded by Ms. Didi. She's also a member of the Executive Committee, and the motion is just urging members to adopt the report of the Executive Committee on policy and administration matters being adopted by the 56th Plenary Assembly.
And that is what has taken us into this break until 14:30, but of course we'll be on good time to make sure that we'll carry on and just to walk you through what has happened so far. And of course, earlier we had the affirmation, administration of oath to members, new members, and also later on we had one other committee. This is a financial report that has also since been adopted.
Yes, indeed. And so that's what has been considered on the floor so far. And business will resume at 14:30 hours, Julius.
Just to remind our viewers and listeners and our followers that what will come up next in the afternoon as we come back, we expect country reports to be submitted, and there's a slot for about 15 minutes for each country to submit the report on implementation of previous plenary assembly policy decisions and resolutions as contained in the verbatim record and summary resolution. All this will come back live.
Absolutely. And so some of the countries that are going to present their reports include Angola, Botswana, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Eswatini, Lesotho, Madagascar.
Yes, indeed. Then we'll have Malawi. I expect to have a report from Namibia, Seychelles, South Africa, Tanzania, Zambia, and Zimbabwe.
So we meet again at 14:30 hours. Pleasant viewing.
Then as a district hospital, we are also under NEMA accreditation, and this allows our community to be able to access services without a financial burden.
Despite the numerous successes Nyimba constituency has scored in achieving Sustainable Development Goal number 3, the district faces a number of challenges.
One of the biggest challenges that we've had is the delay in completion of our phase 2 hospital. At the moment, we are running our district hospital in 2 different places, 5 kilometers apart. What this has meant is it's increased the cost of doing business, because we have wards on one place and theatre on the other side. So it's our plea that the phase 2 be completed to ensure that we run the hospital in one place. I think the other bigger challenge is the fact that as a district, we are probably the second biggest district in the province in terms of surface area. Unfortunately, the healthcare financing at the moment is per capita based, so it's based on the number of people you have rather than the distance that you have to cover to offer that service. So when you're running a district as vast as Nyimba, the cost of having to move that patient from one point to the referral site is higher because of the longer distances that you would basically have.
Meheba resettlement in Solwezi is also making strides in realizing SDG number 3. Jagaimo Clinic is under the United Church of Zambia and is providing affordable and sustainable health services to both refugees and the host community. Ms. Nyakatembe Kanema is sister in charge at the facility and explains how the clinic is providing good health and well-being to the people of Meheba.
Most of the services that we offer here are maternity. We have under 5 clinic. We have nutrition that is basically under growth and monitoring, which is still under 5. We have adolescent, family planning. HIV testing. We don't do treatment here, but we test and then we refer, it being a small clinic. In Mehera, we are a high malaria incidence area. Like everyone that comes here is supposed to be tested for malaria, because someone can come with something else, but immediately you test, you find someone is not even presenting with malaria, but immediately you test, you find that they actually have it.
Sustainable Development Goal number 4 aims at ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education for all, regardless of location, socio-economic status, or other factors. Mr. Michael Mwemba, a teacher at Nyemba Boarding Secondary School, explains how the school is responding to this goal.
We have ensured that we have partnered with a number of organizations. Of course, government, keep girls in school to just ensure that as many as possible children have actually access to this quality education. I'm aware that there are a number of vulnerable children who are being assisted by the Keeping Girls in School program, who are being sponsored here. I'm aware that government also is able to come through VOCs who are being assisted. We also have a number of children, more than 100 children being sponsored through Constituency Development Fund. And I'm sure all these are attempts to ensure that our children, especially around our community, are able to access the quality education which is highly needed.
And Ms. Jennifer Bwalia, another teacher at Nyemba Boarding Secondary School, highlights how teachers and school clubs are contributing to the attainment of SDG number 4.
We are teaching learners various skills